Quentin Tarantino's 2019 film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, was praised as a love letter to the 1960s Hollywood, a time also known as New Hollywood. Young filmmakers were coming into Hollywood with fresh ideas and started to take more control in the industry as the older stars retired. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood depicts the famous location and its stars with the carefree spirit of the 60s, with beautiful people, parties, and groundbreaking films in production. It's a sneak peek into an era of great filmmaking. I'm here to explain why this love letter actually isn't just for Hollywood. In fact, Tarantino made the film with the intention of honouring one of New Hollywood's most famous young stars. Sharon Tate, the person. Sharon Tate was an American actress and model. Her looks were said to be the inspiration behind the design for Malibu Barbie. In the early 1960s, she starred in Roman Polanski's film The Fearless Vampire Killers, during which they began a relationship. Polanski called his relationship with Sharon the happiest I ever was in my life. There was growing excitement for Sharon's future career in film. She was getting good roles, people liked her, and she was incredibly keen to learn more about acting and keep honing her craft. After Sharon and Polanski got married, they became part of a huge social group of the most successful acting talent in Hollywood, which included Mia Farrow, Jane Fonda, Peter Sellers, and Warren Beatty. Some of these people Tarantino depicts in his film, partying and celebrating life and their art. Sharon opened her home to friends and strangers frequently, as this was her embracing the free spirit of the time, and her motto was, live and let live. Around 1968, Sharon's performances were getting great reviews, especially for her comedic potential, and she was Golden Globe nominated for her role in Valley of the Dolls. She became pregnant at the end of 1968 and moved into a new home with her husband in February 1969. She referred to the home as her love house. She continued to host parties that both friends and strangers attended, as Sharon was welcoming to everyone. Sharon was getting ready to be a mother for the first time, but was also very keen to continue advancing her career. She was 26 years old and pregnant with her first child when she was murdered by the group known as the Manson family. I'm not going to get into what happened. This isn't a true crime discussion, nor is that the point of my video. I just want you to understand how beloved this young woman was, and how her life was barely beginning when it was taken from her, and how much this woman's murder, and not her wonderful life and character, is depicted on film and TV by Hollywood, over and over. Sharon Tate, the victim. Of course, a lot of fascination around the deaths of Sharon Tate and her friends come from the circumstances around it. A very famous celebrity and a very famous serial killer. It's scandalous, gory, and intriguing. Even filmmakers who have alleged they wanted to tell the story, and I say story, but I feel the need to repeat that this is a real-life horrific event, in a different, interesting light, have fallen very short of that goal. The core aim remains to take advantage of a morbid piece of famous history to generate revenue and views. These reenactments have rightfully been referred to as disrespectful, exploitative, and even historically inaccurate. There's The Haunting of Sharon Tate, a film in which Hilary Duff as Sharon Tate is plagued by visions, warnings, and nightmares of her impending death, but can do nothing to stop it. As expected, the film ends with Sharon and her friends being murdered brutally. This turns a real-life crime no one saw coming into a strange, poorly acted supernatural flick that the director states is based on real dreams and premonitions Sharon Tate had. Her sister Deborah completely denies this idea. Somewhat unsurprisingly, that same director then had the fantastic idea of following up his first exploitation film with another about Nicole Brown Simpson, filling it with more conspiracies and lies to profit off a woman's murder. I think it's all too easy to forget about the real human lives taken during these murders. A lot of cinema tends to exploit the tragedies of history for personal gain and profit, and tap the more interesting twisted villains as the main characters of the story, dehumanizing and ignoring their very real victims in the process. There is a morbid fascination that exists with serial killers and true crime that has meant Sharon Tate is remembered more for the awful way she died, instead of her budding talent and the movies and characters she created. Hollywood continuing to profit off this tragedy without respecting or appreciating the real lives lost is insulting and exploitative to her and her friends' memories. Deborah Tate was 16 years old when her sister Sharon was killed. As one can expect, she's not a big fan of Hollywood films recreating the horrific way in which her sister and unborn nephew were killed. When Deborah first heard famous director Quentin Tarantino, known for his exaggeratedly violent scenes, was making a film that included Sharon, she was not happy. However, Tarantino did something the other directors did not bother to do. He reached out to Deborah and spent 3 days with her, sharing the entire script with her to assure Deborah he did not want to tarnish the memory of her sister. Upon seeing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Deborah Tate said the film was like a time machine for her to see her sister again through Margot Robbie's portrayal.
And I actually shed a tear because she sounded just like Sharon. It was very, very interesting. It was an opportunity to visit again with the live Sharon, not just a Sharon on the film screen.
In an interview with Vanity Fair, Deborah expanded on this, stating, "She actually touched me in a way that convinced me that she was Sharon. She did such a damn good job that for me, personally, the visit was a little short. I had Sharon back in front of me again, and it was too short a visit." I think that is a huge kindness from Tarantino and Robbie to give Deborah that positive and nostalgic experience at last. Sharon Tate, the character. Sharon Tate is not the main character in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Margot Robbie features heavily in a lot of the promotional material for the film, but her role is relatively small. To understand why, it's important to consider the context of the film first. Tarantino's intention with this film was to transport his audience back to a dreamy and slightly rose-tinted 1960s Hollywood. The film follows the two fictional characters of Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth, played by Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt respectively. Then, while Dalton and Booth struggle to make ends meet in the fast-moving and high-pressure movie industry, the film occasionally follows Sharon Tate, who is just enjoying life and travelling around Hollywood. The plot is thin, but that's done intentionally. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a celebration of 1960s Tinseltown and recaptures that era through loosely connected scenarios, such as parties, production sets, and casual outings around Los Angeles. The parties, the hippie aesthetic, the fun, and the excitement are key here, but the film also highlights the pressure that comes with a high-profile public job and the expectations with it. This is the pre-social media era, before paparazzi stalked every celebrity relentlessly, and Tarantino demonstrates the more easygoing life of celebrities through Sharon. Tarantino has received criticism for not giving Robbie many lines in the film. When I first heard about this critique, before seeing the film, my own skepticism grew. As you can tell from my Sweeney Todd video, female representation and agency is important to me, especially when these characters are central to the film and/or plot. But Tarantino doesn't give Sharon a motivation or agenda in this film. He doesn't give her lines because he doesn't want to put unnecessary words into her mouth, which would create a character further removed from the real-life Sharon Tate. It would also be replicating what so many other Hollywood productions have done: change Sharon as a person to fit their own narrative.
I think the moments that I got on screen gave an opportunity to honor Sharon and the lightness. I don't think it was intended to delve deeper than, like Brad also mentioned, I think the tragedy ultimately was the loss of innocence, and to really show those wonderful sides of her. I think could be adequately done without speaking.
I lean towards agreeing with Robbie here after seeing the film. Although some performances really require dialogue and screen time to develop the characters, in this film, Sharon's silence doesn't feel unnatural as we usually see her alone, going about life happily. Dialogue would feel unnatural and unnecessary. This is a wonderful instance of show, don't tell, where Robbie's charming performance speaks for itself. What really stands out for me is how happy and carefree her scenes are. There's no morbidity or foreboding of things to come, like previous depictions of Sharon. Instead, we see Sharon going about her life in Hollywood, attending parties and dancing, driving with her husband, even generously picking up a hitchhiker. As Sharon was recently married and known for her fun social life and trusting nature, Tarantino sticks close to the truth with his depiction. I think it would be remiss for me to not mention Tarantino's close-ups on Sharon's feet. Foot fetish jokes aside, Sharon was known for not wearing shoes. She would allegedly wear rubber bands around her ankles to make it seem like she was wearing sandals to get into no shoes, no service restaurants. So the scene in which she puts her dirty feet on the theatre seats isn't hugely off from real life, as she was most comfortable barefoot. Tarantino naturally chooses to pay homage to this quirk in his film. Through Sharon, we see the free spirit and the style of the 1960s. She's young, in love, successful, and having a great time. There's a particularly moving sequence wherein Sharon sees her newest movie is playing in a nearby theatre, and manages to snag a free ticket where she awkwardly but proudly tells the clerk she's in the film. It's actually a really adorable scene that is played so sincerely as Sharon poses by her poster for a photo requested by the clerk. It also highlights how Sharon was at a big turning point in her life. She was only just being recognised for her acting roles and was on the verge of really breaking out in the public eye. The next scene has Sharon in the movie theatre. Sharon is encouraged by the laughter of the other patrons, and the scene, like Sharon, radiates pure joy. This is what she wants. This is why she acts. It's validating, but also incredibly sweet, because she's not made arrogant by it, just reassured, like a normal person with insecurities about their craft. Sharon presumably wanted to be known for her acting, not for her death. The film being played in the theatre is The Wrecking Crew, and it was her first proper move into comedy. Sharon really wanted to move into a comedic career permanently. The film's actual footage is used in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, giving us a proper look at the real Sharon Tate. Sharon's light-hearted and joyful scenes contrast the trouble and worry that face Dalton and Booth in their storylines. Dalton is struggling to get the acting acclaim he desires, and Booth's alcoholism and penchant for finding trouble frequently causes him strife. Margot Robbie said about her character that,
For me, I just saw her as a ray of light, and I just wanted her to be light, and that was my job and my role to serve in this story. So I kind of applied to myself to the character in that respect, and in doing so I felt like I could honour the memory of real life Sharon Tate, who so many people said was such a bright light in this world.
This depiction of a happy, carefree Sharon has received some criticism though. Tarantino has been accused of creating a dream girl stereotype. However, when there are so many other tragic depictions of Sharon, as well as her depressing connection to one of the most notorious serial killers in history, I think this happy, wholesome portrayal is overdue. Her scenes are light and playful, and are a welcome and surprising relief from the heavier scenes with Dalton and Booth. The closest we get to foreboding during Sharon's screen time is a brief scene in which Charles Manson visits Sharon's home to look for someone else, and Sharon's friend Jay gets rid of him. Tarantino hints at the dark reality, and that creates a small, brief sense of sadness for her character, as we realise this bright, full of life young woman is fated to have her life end in a senseless act of evil. From a filmmaking standpoint, it creates tension as the film moves into its final act. The scene is based on true events, although it was a different friend of Sharon's that interacted with Manson. That ending. In the film, Rick Dalton is Sharon's fictional next-door neighbour. The members of the Manson cult who feature in this final sequence are Tex, Sadie, Flower Child, and Katie, who are not fictional characters. Things start by suddenly shifting from historical accuracy when the group decide to kill Dalton instead of Sharon after he shoos them away. Also, Flower Child panics and flees in the car before the invasion begins, which did not happen in reality. Tarantino is known for rewriting history in his films. In *Inglourious Basterds*, Tarantino kills off Hitler and Goebbels in his finale by submachine gunning them in a cinema. It's important to understand why Tarantino does this. He does it because he can. He's creating a new story, an adaptation based on real events, and using the power of cinema to rewrite its history. He is preventing further tragedy. This was already foreshadowed by the name of this film, and it primarily following two fictional characters through a glamorous and rose-tinted glasses view of New Hollywood. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is Tarantino's fairy tale version of 1960s Hollywood. The scene in which Tex, Sadie, and Katie attack Dalton's home is shocking, violent, and incredibly over the top. It's brilliant. You can feel Tarantino's fury. He hates these people. It doesn't feel like most of his other films, where there is a strange glee and excitement to his violent, exaggerated, gory, and fictional action sequences. There is a passionate anger behind every moment of this sequence, wherein Tarantino wants to instill his justice in the only way he can. Dalton is floating on his pool, oblivious, while Booth and his dog defend Dalton's home. Booth does not take the attackers seriously because he is high. He also encountered this group earlier in the film through a chance encounter. Despite the tension of the scene and the real-life quote Tarantino uses,
you are...
I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business.
No, I was dumber than that. Something like Rex.
he makes the intruders into a joke, taking away their power. Booth takes control in two swift moves by having his dog attack Tex and knocking back Sadie, who screams wildly, clutching her bloodied and broken nose. Tarantino goes for extreme close-ups here, focusing on the pain these characters are feeling. These characters who are based on real people who committed heinous, evil crimes. Instead of glorifying these murderers and giving them the power and spotlight as so much of the media has done, they are the victims now and are receiving violent justice for their intended crimes. There is a particular amount of brutality that Tarantino reserves for Sadie. She is the second person attacked and is screaming for nearly the entirety of the sequence, bloodied and ravaged by the dog, yet alive for the longest of the three. She is lit aflame by Dalton, using a flamethrower he kept from a film set. It didn't surprise me when I found out that Sadie and Tex had been the ones to kill Sharon. In this final sequence, Tex and Sadie's pain is given the most attention by Tarantino. As the real-life Flower Child wasn't personally involved in the murders and allegedly wanted them to stop, he gives her a quick out by having her flee the violent crime scene that kills her co-conspirators. I shocked myself by crying a lot during this ending sequence. After almost 2 hours of seeing snippets of Sharon Tate, this wonderful, full of life, happy young woman going about her life in Hollywood, me knowing what a tragic and horrible end would befall her, I unexpectedly got to see her attackers beaten and destroyed in the most painful, horrendous way Tarantino could feasibly give them in his setting. Yet, the reality is heartbreaking. Sharon, her friends, and her unborn child did not survive that night. And while, fortunately, the film does not go into what actually happened to them, it's sadly not difficult to find out what did happen. Sharon appears again at the end with her friends, and she kindly invites Dalton in for some drinks. This completes Dalton's arc of trying to make it in and be accepted by Hollywood, tying things up nicely for the main story. The music is soft and typical of the era. It's a sweet scene that has Sharon doing what she was known for, being a welcoming host and a friend to all. Conclusion. Unlike Sharon Tate's previous depictions in film and television, Tarantino's version has Sharon filled with happiness and hope. There is a lot of love and respect for Sharon in this film, and he gives her the ending he believes she deserved. A happy and safe one. A chance to keep living. In Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's finale, Tarantino turns the people who ended her life into a joke. And he uses his film to enact his own personal revenge on them in the only way he can. It's not reality, and obviously cannot be, but for Tarantino, the Sharon Tate in this universe gets to live, as well as the other potential victims of the Manson clan. He did this in a way that earned her sister Deborah's approval and brought her sister back to life on screen, even briefly. While editing this video, I came across a quote from Tarantino, confirming my suspicions about his intentions when making Once Upon a Time and including Sharon. He told Entertainment Weekly, "I wanted to show people a glimpse of Sharon before the murder, so they think of her as more than just a victim." When the audience finishes watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, they are not once again replaying in their minds the way the Manson clan committed their heinous murders, but instead can think back on the beautiful, happy and kind Sharon Tate that is rarely shown in cinema. And thank you, Quentin Tarantino, for giving that to us. And to Sharon.